introduction.
Thank you, President Carl and fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Sherry Ann actually had the speaker for today, and Sherry Ann and I talked about inviting Rosie Freier from Singing Horse Trading Post in South Dakota to come out, and Sherry Ann was enthusiastically supporting and asked me to introduce Rosie. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rosie. I want to just tell you a little bit about our club's connection with Rosie. She'll do some more of that. John Willis got to know Rosie, I think, a long time ago, right, John? And introduced us to Rosie, and Rosie has a lot of crafting that she does there. And when we got word of the fabric that was needed, Marty and many others coordinated a massive fabric drive that showed up at Rosie's trading post, and she can tell you some more of the story from there. So it's really great that we can talk via Zoom, because Rosie never would have been able to visit one of our club meetings. So it's pretty great that she's able to come now. And our club supported the teenagers going to South Dakota 2 summers ago. And I was fortunate enough to be able to travel then. And we stayed at Rosie's trading post, because at the trading post, she also has lodging. And so we all were able to stay there, and it was a beautiful place, very memorable, and a great place to explore the Pine Ridge Reservation from. So if anybody's going there, I highly recommend staying with Rosie. So that's a little bit of our history with Rosie. And now, Rosie, if you want to take it away, we'd love to hear about you and about what's going on in Pine Ridge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me, inviting me. This is, I'm kind of nervous. I don't usually do this, but I will try my best. So maybe you know this already, but I'm originally from Germany. I'm going to be 57 years old. I came to the United States when I was 28 to just drive across the United States, because most of us growing up in Europe, especially in Germany, we are fascinated with everything America has for landscape, for movies. When we went to school, we learned about the history of the whole continent, South and North American continent. We also learned about the history of Australia, South Africa, China, Russia, the whole world. So most young people in Europe, by the time they are 18, they have traveled a few countries, other countries, just to go see and to put it together with what we learned in school. So most of us, it was the United States. My grandparents on both sides survived the Second World War, told us about planes that came from the American soldiers that threw packages with food. And my grandma said that without these food packages that were coming out of planes were thrown, they would have not survived. So this was one of the things that always stuck in my mind, and I just wanted to go see the United States. So I had a job that allowed me to take paid and unpaid vacation, and I took off 6 months without losing my job to just drive across the United States. Got to Pine Ridge, was told not to go there because it's a dangerous place to go, but I went anyways. I found some really nice people, spent about 3-4 weeks here, and then was on my way back to out of the reservation, going to Montana. Met a man, fell in love, got married 4 months later, and I was married for 15 years, got divorced, and I'm still here. So this is in a nutshell. There's a little bit more to it. I never thought I would open up a bead store on the reservation. But one of the things that came out here is that the local people have no access to beading materials or arts and crafts materials. So last night, just to see what comes up, I Googled the Pine Ridge Reservation, and it says that it was established in 1889 and that it is 2.8 million acres large. There is about 30,000 people living here. We don't know this for sure. This is just what between the census and the tribe, what they're telling us. So the distances for people are huge to get any kind of like groceries, or we always joke because to this day you cannot buy socks or underwear on the reservation because there's no store for that. So I got the first business license in '94, at that point still in Omaha because my husband was living in Omaha. He was from here, but drove truck out of Omaha, Nebraska. So the trading post is 26 years old, 27 years old this year. And it grew. We purchased the first artwork here, sent it to Germany, doubled the money, and then came back and bought more. And that's how it started. It started with $500. Eventually started to build a real building, which turned out to be a challenge because there are no banks on the reservation. And if you go off the reservation to get any kind of funding, most banks are not willing to work with the reservation community. One of the reasons, this is what I learned way later, is that the reservations were established as prisoner of war camps, and that's what still comes up with the Google search. So this camp has the number 344, which means that every tribal member that is enrolled here has a number that was given through the Department of Interior and then the BIA to each person that lives here. So with this prisoner of war camp, the United States government to this day is holding the land that is left, that is a reservation, is holding that land in trust. So my son owns the land that the store is sitting on. And when you look at this deed, it reads deed to restricted Indian land held in trust by the United States government for, and then it has his name on it. So when we went to the bank with this deed, they basically laughed us off because the bank would be financing in the end the United States government, which apparently is not something they wanted to do. Also, if we fail to make loan payments, they would not be able to physically take anything because the land is held in trust. So we had help from my family, and we have a lending institution that is called the Lakota Fund that is here on the reservation that is able to make loans to tribal members to start small businesses. And that's where we got some of the help from and started to build this store. Took 11 years to build it. We're still adding on to it, but that's where that is today. So we sell all the materials that people need to make their traditional dance regalia for the traditional dancing. We also sell materials to make drums, lots of beads, more beads than anything else. We get in trade the artwork that the Lakota people make, so we don't always have to pay for it. They don't always have to pay. We really trade a lot. And one of the things we don't have is fabric. So we had a lot of requests for fabric. And when we heard that there was a possibility to get fabric donated, then we just told some of the ladies that there's a donation coming. And if they're interested, they could just come here and pick up fabric for free. And then it turned out that the freight company was asking for the place where this fabric will be delivered to has to have an unloading dock or a dock and what is it called? One of these little machines that you get a crate out of a semi and then you put it somewhere. And
Forklift.
Yes, forklift. Thank you. Thank you, John. So we didn't have this. We called around to find somebody that would have this and would be willing to receive that. Couldn't find anybody. There was a dock in Kyle, but no forklift. And so I got the neighbors together and I explained this to them. And because we're on a hill, they said, this is easy, have the semi pull straight up. And then we will all pull in the back and gravity will get that crate out of the semi. So we put a huge tarp on the ground and the neighbors all came. And the semi came. The driver was actually really, really nice, nicer to deal with than the freight company boss. I can't remember who that was. But the driver agreed to this, pulled up on top of the hill as far as he could. We opened the back. I didn't know what a crate was. Today I know how big a crate is. And then because it was too heavy, we could not do it, but we just opened it up and then the fabric was loose in pieces, not in bags, in that crate. So we just unloaded it and put it on the tarp. And when the tarp was full, we folded it over and did the same thing again. Then we have a local radio station. It's a community radio station, Keeley Radio. And we made a public service announcement that there's a huge amount of fabric and for people to please come and get it. So in less than 48 hours, I think most of it was gone. It came in the springtime, if I remember correctly. The last pieces to go were the Christmas print fabric, but everything else went really, really fast. And a lot of people came here and got this. And we did get the semi to back up after we moved the tarp. And it took less than an hour to unload it. So he was happy. The driver was all happy. It was a big adventure for all of us. I'm not sure if anybody took pictures, but it was really great. It was well received. I myself don't know how to sew. So I didn't keep any. We have what we call a free box here where people send donations. And I think we put the last pieces, the Christmas fabric, in the free box. So I want to thank everybody that was involved in getting that fabric here. There's women that made clothing for their children, a lot of dresses, a lot of skirts were made with that. Some of it was used for the style quilts. There is a traditional design. It's like a morning star. It's a 5-point star that is sewn on blankets. In lack of a better term, it's like a patchwork, or how would you say that, John, correctly? It's not patchwork. How would you say?
It's just a quilt design, and there's, it is. I can't think of the right word. I want to say patchwork too, but they're beautiful, and
yeah,
Rotary has some.
A lot of them were created with that fabric and then sold by the individuals that created them. So that was a huge success. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to mention the reservation has a Pine Ridge Area Chamber of Commerce. So if anybody is ever interested, they are available to answer questions. I wanted to say some of the things now with COVID that are affecting us. The president, Julian Bearrunner, in March declared the state of emergency for the reservation. So I might have to say that the reservations to this day are sovereign nations. The United States made treaties with indigenous people. There was over 500 treaties that were signed with individual Native nations. And the Pine Ridge Reservation was established with the Oglala Lakota or Lakota Oglala Sioux people through a treaty also. So we have a government model that is reflecting the same as the United States government has. So we have a vice president, a president, we have a council, and we have housing programs that are created similar or almost exactly the same as what the United States has on housing programs, and it keeps going like this. So our president declared a state of emergency on March 10th and asked for a shelter in place ordinance, which asked everybody to stay home as much as possible, get groceries, do essential things, of course, but for the most part, as much as possible, stay home. And then eventually at the end of the summer, I believe, this nation received some of the CARES Act money that was given out through the federal government. And with that money, the individual districts, the reservation is divided in 9 districts, created a huge amount of day labor work, which has never happened before. Our unemployment is 80%. But with that money, they were able to create day labor forces, and the people delivered food to all the ones that stayed home, to the ones that are in quarantine. They helped get essentials to the families that did not want to leave their homes. And we have a lot of times 15, 16, 18 people that live in a 3-bedroom house. So they go through way more food and toilet paper than a regular household that only has maybe 4 or 5 people living in a home. So the day labor was a huge success, still is. They also established border patrol or checkpoints to go into the reservation. And they were asking the people that are not residents not to come to the reservation in order to slow down the spread of the virus. We actually had people that would come from California, even all the way from New York, in RVs, saying that they want to get away from the hotspots and they would like to stay on the reservation. So the checkpoints did not let them come through and asked them to not do this at this time. So we were able to slow down the spread quite a bit, and our numbers compared to the rest of the United States are low. Even compared to South Dakota, the reservations are still in better shape than the state is. The reason for that is because we don't have the health care that a lot of other places have. So I think that the tribe did a good job with this. Of course, it affected businesses. There's no question about it. We needed the tourists. But I still think that it's more important to have especially the older people healthy and not getting sick and just have less revenue, I guess. If there's no people to shop, then that's not going to help either. We had quite a few people that passed away from this virus. People that we all knew, our neighbors, teachers, frontline workers. So it did affect the reservation just like a lot of other places too. I don't know, is there any questions at this point that I could answer?
Yes, I would like to make a comment, and that is that President Biden has chosen for his Secretary of the Interior an American Indian.
Yeah.
And what you said about there being no banks and the inability of the Native people to borrow money because of the attitude of the banks, it seems to me that it would be a good idea for our club, which supports the Pine Ridge, to write a letter to the president and also the Secretary of the Interior to see what they can do about changing this designation, which basically keeps people there basically designated as prisoners.
Yeah, it's we have a credit union in the meantime that came from this reservation, from community members. And I think the credit union is about 5 years old by now, or 6. I'm not exactly sure.
So you do have a bank in that sense then?
Yeah, we do have a bank now. We didn't 20 some years ago when we were trying to get a loan. But we do have the credit union now. Yeah, we also have coming with this a lot of people that would benefit from any kind of financial literacy training. There's quite a few people that don't have no banking experience, of course, because that didn't exist until like 5-6 years ago. To end that status as a, I think it's called a dependent nation. That's, in my opinion, that is a very, very complicated issue, because in order to get the United States federal government to uphold the treaties that were signed, that status to be a dependent nation, if that is removed, then I think that treaty would be invalid. So to find an in-between solution for people where they could still be able to use their land as a collateral, or be the ones that wish to do so, be like able to work on that, what we learned as children was called the American dream, to be able to have your own home and to have your own home on your own land even.
Seems reasonable to me.
That, I think that would be great. Yeah, and at some point, my understanding is that the Bureau of Indian Affairs was put in place to help people to achieve everything that they wanted to achieve. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at this. And I need to say at this point too, that everything that I'm saying today is my own personal opinion. I'm in no way representing the tribe or any community or Lakota members of this tribe. As I said, I'm from Germany, so I'm not a tribal member. I've just been living here for many, many years.
Marty?
Rosie, first off, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about your life at Pine Ridge. But you're being modest in term. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you help the kids who stay with you? So that would be one thing to tell us about. And the other is, what can we do? What do you need, do you think? We've supplied quilting material. We've helped Keeley Radio. We've supplied laptops. What do you think we can continue to do to help the residents at Pine Ridge?
I think fabric is always good. It's very much needed. Now, because the reservation is so big, the fabric that came here, I think went in maybe, I would say about a 20-mile radius. There's other communities that would benefit from fabric, as an example, sewing machines too, that are further away. Like if we go from here to Wambley, I think that's about 60 miles. Going to Martin is about 60 miles. Red Shirt is 40 miles. So there is other communities that could definitely use help too. I think understanding would go a long ways, and I'm sure that a lot of you, if you're interested in this, then you have understanding to respect other nations, to respect the tribal nations that are still on this continent, in my eyes, would be one of the most important things at this point. to know that, and I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad, but most Native nations were put on a reservation because the government thought at that point that there was nothing there, and this would be the fastest and easiest way to get rid of them. Then they found out that most of the uranium for us, or zeolite, or in some areas coal and oil, and is located on reservation land that is not suitable for any kind of farming or anything else. So the revenues from that oil or coal a lot of times did not go to the Native people. It went to all kinds of other places. So I think learning about all of this and understanding it, and then at some point maybe giving the reservations their fair share, what I would call it. We still have people that live in mobile homes. If anybody gets the Lakota Country Times newspaper, they have an article about a lady that is 73 years old. She lives in a mobile home that is way over 40 years old, is falling apart. The furnace that was in there is considered a hazard, so they won't put propane in anymore. She has 3 electric heaters in a 3-bedroom mobile home. The floor has holes in it. They can look and see the ground. These things are really, really hard. Now, I don't know what it would take to raise the money for her to get a new mobile home or a newer mobile home that would be livable, have livable conditions. A lot of people still don't have running water, or they can't be hooked up to the water. The water line is like sometimes only within 300, 400, or 500 feet, but for some reason the tribe is not able to hook them up. By now they have rules in place where every household can just hire a contractor and do this on their own. But the average income for most families, for most families, is around $5,000 a year. So with that money, they're not able to hire a contractor to hook up the water supply or electricity. The lines are here for electricity. We have phone lines in the ground, but the fee to hook up to this is sometimes not, people are not able to afford that.
Rosie, does
Yep.
the community own the water line? And then my second question would be, I've read where some reservations are taking advantage of solar power generation. They don't have a lot of money, so it's hard to bridge that gap. But even here, a lot of solar is constructed by and owned by the third party, and they get sort of a rent. The farmers up in New York use wind power in the same way. So 2 questions there.
There is some beginning of construction for solar. Yeah, the biggest project is on the west side of the reservation, where they create a solar park, and I can't remember exactly with how much, but that energy is being sold to a company that is located off the reservation. They just needed a place to put their solar panels.
Yes, that's typical. That's typical here as well. The solar is generated and then put out in the grid, but the landowner gets I'll call it a royalty or rent, which would be the case for the tribe. I would think that they'd be able to they wouldn't have the capital expense, but they'd have the long-term revenue from that placement.
Would they? If the government owns the land, isn't the government going to get it?
It's held in trust. So I'm assuming that this money would go to the BIA. I don't know for sure.
But Carl, just to remind you,
It's not, they're already doing this places. So I think that the answer to that question is how they do it elsewhere.
Carl, just to remind you, one of our projects from the Brattleboro Rotary Club and the Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary Club was we developed solar energy for Keeley Radio, where we're saving them a lot of money by the use of solar. And there is a company owned by Red Cloud that is doing a lot of solar work and teaching residents about how to install it. So it's not only helping in terms of energy, but it's also training people so
Yeah.
that they'll be able to do it as well. And that was a
Yeah.
project that
But
we've been very much involved in.
they don't have a lot of land. They have a lot of land that's not otherwise useful. So having these grids has the potential of generating income. While you were speaking, I was listening, but I also I'm a banker. I quickly searched the Small Business Administration. They have a whole area on insisting Native Americans, but I can see even everywhere in the US, they don't make direct loans. They guarantee loans the banks make. So I think the community out there should focus on growing that credit union because they could become an SBA lender and do guaranteed loans. That nothing happens overnight, but I think that's
Right.
the answer to helping them. Most of those people with low income don't have a business already, so they're gonna be starting businesses, so they need micro loans and such, but there's a whole wealth of information on the SBA site that I can help you locate if you would like to.
I did see some of it. Yeah. It's and of course every bank asks for collateral.
Well,
But there's not a lot of
that's why you need to have that credit union grow and become strong and have the capital, because they'll know what they can do. The SBA guarantees the debt, and they'd have to learn that credit union have to learn how to make business loans within their community. It would take a fair amount of time because if people don't pay back their loans, they're not going to guarantee any more loans. But there's a wealth of information there. And it's a long road for sure. Rob?
Yes, thank you, President Carl. I was really happy to see on the call today John Willis, who's been such a supporter of our work, and also Lisa Sparrow is here. And we all know Lisa, and she traveled with us. And also Mary Collins was invited, and I'm really happy that you're here, Mary. But I was just hoping that some of you could maybe say a word or two about your experience on Pine Ridge and maybe with Rosie.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll jump in and just say that I think I met Rosie when they were building the house. I don't know what in building it for 11 years. I'm not sure at what point of that 11 years that we met, but that's how long ago it's been. And I've watched for all those years, not only through my own eyes, but through the way that the community talks about the work that Rosie does with Singing Horse and for the community. And as a humble person who's first and foremost going to acknowledge she's not Lakota and she's a German person, an outsider of the community, and doesn't want to speak for the community, I can say that she's a very well trusted person all throughout the reservation, and they truly appreciate the work that she does. They don't view her as somebody who's there to gain personally as much as to just contribute to and be a member of the community, who's respectful and honored very much. So more kudos to you, Rosie,
Thank
for all
you.
the things you do.
Thank
And
you.
I do want to acknowledge to the president that the Lakota Fund, the things that you're talking about, they do. That's what they're about. They raise money, they loan money for local businesses, they help people get started all, but it's a long uphill battle of it. I mean, when you have the normal unemployment rate is about 80 to 84%, and you're not in COVID times, it's quite a struggle. It's a very different reality than you just think about how much during the recession of 2008, we all were so distraught when it was up to 8 to 10% unemployment in the United States. And that's just for the short time of the recession. So it's a very complicated situation. But I'll let other people know.
They need a local lender who understands to grow into that space.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Mary, did you have comment, Mary Collins?
Yeah, thank you, by the way, Roger, for inviting me. Roger has heard me talk about Pine Ridge ad nauseum. And Rosie, hello. I'm
Hi, Mary.
very, how are you? I don't know if Jerry Baker has been out to visit lately, but she and I go back many years. And I also, when I'm very familiar with your work and your place, and spend a lot of time just down the road from you at the White Plumes home. I stay there often when I'm there. I'll be very brief because Rosie spoke very eloquently about the challenges to Pine Ridge. I put something in the chat. My history with Pine Ridge goes back many, many years, and it's my second home. I miss it when I'm not there, and I miss my family. I have a lot of family there now, and I'm in touch with them every day. And Rosie knows probably all of them. Anyway, but here's what I will say in a nutshell. The challenges to Pine Ridge that I'm familiar with and have been involved with for many years are healthcare, education, tribal sovereignty, jobs, cultural equity and enrichment, preserving the language is one of them, transportation, access to banking is one of them, but there is a tremendous amount of prejudice that surrounds people, and there's a lot of reluctance on their part to even ask in a lot of ways. The work that I've done mostly is involved with there are 4,000 homes short of what's needed on the reservation, young families especially, because the half of the population is under the age of 25. You've got a lot of very young parents and young children, and they need their own homes. And when you have 15, 16, 17, 18 people living in a single 3-bedroom home, which compresses and combines a lot of the stressors in those homes, it makes it almost impossible for young families to establish themselves outside of some of the traumas and the stresses that have been visited upon people. So I started a project 5 years ago called Lakota Tiny House Nation, where we worked on building tiny homes to allow for people to have a home. And we raised about $50,000 and worked on 3 properties. One was a brand new build. The other was a renovation of a medicine man's home that was gifted to his great-grandson. And the other was a mobile home that needed a lot of repairs so that a grandmother with her 3 grandchildren could live there safely. I'd love to see the program continue. There is a new technical high school on the reservation. Thunder Valley is there doing wonderful building projects. Rosie knows absolutely, without question, what the stress is when you don't have a safe home to live in, when you don't have water, when you don't have power, when you have too many people living there. And the idea of the tiny homes was, and there are a lot of groups that come out and want to help build, but they're building homes that are too big for the families to be able to maintain and to support. A tiny home is one that 4 people can live in, and you can afford to sustain that home. And the idea was to train and then to pass along the training to other families. And there are many, many other things, but I think that's probably one of the most important issues. And the idea for me came to me because about 5 years ago, I was noticing a tremendous increase in youth suicide. And I knew some of those kids. And it broke my heart to know that they felt hopeless and they feel isolated, geographically isolated, racially, culturally isolated, and they need help to be able to live in a sovereign way, in a culturally respectful way. But you can't get there when you have no heat and you have no water and you have no food. So I would love to speak with anyone again, and I will wrap up there, but I'll put my email in the chat. And thank you for the invitation to join you. I'm so grateful for people like Rosie and the Rotary for doing what you do around the world. And Pine Ridge is one reservation of many. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have other comments?
And I would love to say thank you all for all your work. I'd love to cede my time to Joellen, who I know is there, and she's done some pretty wonderful things about suicide prevention. Joellen, are you willing to do that?
Just happy to. I was just noticing that I have to be at a 1 o'clock meeting, so I'll keep it really short.
Okay, I can finish.
Although, thank you. I mean, I'm the director of the Vermont Suicide Prevention Center, which is a public-private partnership with the Agency of Human Services in Vermont. We do projects all over Vermont, including one up in Grand Isle with the Abenaki Parent Advisory Council and the Indian Education Office of Missisquoi. So we created the You Matter Suicide Prevention Program, which we lent, so to speak, and to the reservation to do what they wanted with it. And Simply Smiles on the Cheyenne River Reservation adapted it for a number of years. This past year was tough because we had to go virtual with everything. And I was a little distracted because I became a grandmother. So I don't know what happened with all of that, but I hope to follow up. And, you know, the community center that Simply Smiles has created over the last decade, really, really in partnership building the trust of the Lakota on the Cheyenne River, has resulted in they have not had a youth suicide in their immediate area around La Plante in the last, I think it's 6 to 8 years, which is hugely impactful outcomes. So I think, you know, anything we do to support the building of community, it really in partnership, as Simply Smiles does their work, is what makes a difference. So
Thank you, Joanne.
thank you all so much. I was so pleased to be invited, and I am going to sign off. So thanks, Rob.
And we're coming to the normal close time of our meeting. If someone's got a quick comment they want to make,
Can I add one
do.
quick-
I can't tell who's talking.
Well, I was one, somebody else was, but I wanted to just say that with COVID, we created a job corps for youth with the Bear Project. And we've given over 50 youth around Pine Ridge jobs, part-time jobs, to help them be able to have their own money, learn about life skills and jobs and so forth. And that's a really good thing. So if people are looking for a way to help, you can look at the Bear Project and
Yep.
Pine Ridge Reservation. And so far we've raised over $60,000 for that, which will carry it for a little while, but we're trying to figure out how to make it sustainable. So if you're looking for ways to help, I know Rotary has done a lot, and I really appreciate Marty and Tristan and Rob and all of the Rotary people for the work that you guys do. But if you're looking for other things to do, I'd be happy to tell you about that program we've been raising money for. It's pretty amazing, but there's lots and lots of great things great places to contribute. Thank you, folks. And thank you, Rosie.
Yeah.
And can I
Thank you,
just
John.
very quickly say something?
If maybe we'll finish up with your comments.
Okay, this is the beautiful view from Rosie's front porch. This is the other thing she does, is take care of lots and lots of dogs and cats, also have a home there. And this is the beautiful beaded turtle that I got at the store. The work that is done at that place is exquisite, and I'll treasure it forever. That's it.
Thank you, Terry.
I have, can I say something real quick too? I forgot to mention this, I guess, the main thing. Most people, because of the unemployment, do create beautiful beadwork, quill work, and different kinds of artwork at home. So to support the artists and buy from them, in my eyes, is a really good thing. There is a place in White Clay going up. It's called the Artists. It's like a place for artists where they can sell I'm not sure how far they are, but for us as the trading post, we have a website. It's called singinghorse.net, and then it will take you to a e-store where you can order from the internet. And some of the items that say sold are still on, so that we know what to put back. And so we don't have to describe everything, measure it over and over. So we leave the things that sold. But this is one thing that would help, is to support artists. And I'm sure that Mary knows some of the people directly that people can buy from. I think that would really help, because it makes their time, it values their time, and it helps them to pay for a bill, helps them to support their families. So that is
Thank you.
one thing that would help,
Thank you. Thank you.
besides donations, of course.
Rosie, we really appreciate your taking the time out of your day and talking to us. It was a great program. You did a wonderful job. I hope you'll join us other times as well. And your support crew as well, everyone who commented. And with that, we'll adjourn our meeting and look forward to talking to everyone next week.